Excellency Anthony Thomas Aquinas Carmona, by the authority vested in me by the Senate and Council of the University of the West Indies, I have pleasure in conferring on you the degree of Doctor of Laws honoris causa of the University of the West Indies. My sincere congratulations.
Good afternoon to all. Professor the Honorable Sir George Allain, Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Her Excellency Ms. Rima Carmona, Professor E. Nigel Harris, Vice Chancellor of the University of the West Indies, Mr. C. William Iton, University Registrar, Professor Clement Sankat, Pro Vice Chancellor and Campus Principal, the University of the West Indies, St. Augustine, other distinguished members of the Platform Party, Ms. MacArthur Linda Sandy Lewis, Honorary Graduate. I have been remiss. Dr. Ms. MacArthur Linda Sandy Lewis, Honorary Graduate. Member of the Cabinet, members of the Diplomatic Corps, Ms. Alia Hassan Ali, former First Lady of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, members of the campus management, deans and members of staff of UWI St. Augustine campus, heads, chief executive officers of the business sector, permanent secretaries and other government officials, presidents of the Guild of Students and Alumni Association, graduating students of the faculties of law and engineering, members of the media, other distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. We graduates must salute our dear families, friends, and supporters who have been an invaluable source of support and encouragement to us all. And personally, this includes my own wife, Her Excellency Rima Carmona, my children Christian and Anura, my parents and mentors, Dennis and Barbara Carmona, and other members of my family. I have been a public servant all my professional life. And in all my years of public service, there was never any specific objective to seek definitive accolades. Maybe I was not that ambitious, possibly, because it was not just me. But I did have a strong commitment to succeed, to get the job done with the required competence and be part of positive change, whatever my endeavor. Humbling it is to be here today at St. Augustine campus of the University of the West Indies to receive this award of Doctor Honoris Causa of Laws. It is intimidating to now find myself added to the pantheon of distinguished Caribbean men and women on whom this award has been conferred by the university during its 66 years of existence. As much as today I am receiving a doctorate in laws, I am ever vigilant in maintaining my doctorate in common sense. Receiving an honorary doctorate, in my humble view, must trigger a life thesis, a unique, unprecedented idea that can either make a positive difference in one's life or a nation's soul. It must have as its imperative betterment for all, not transient, nothing esoteric, but leaving most of all a legacy that is a statement of action and not a statement of theory. It also gives me particular pleasure to be sharing the stage with one of my favorite performing artists, fellow honorary graduate Dr. MacArthur Linda Sandy Lewis Calypso Rose. I well remember, Doctor, how her 1977 road march within Calypso, Give Me More Tempo, pulled even those of us preparing for our final examinations as undergraduates away from the books and into the feds. Being a Southerner, she gave us in the Southland a definitive significance and a sense of ownership and belonging to the national identity. I remember going down San Fernando. Down they have plenty tempo. Hatter's Steel Orchestra sounding sweet. I go in and join San Fernandians and roll on Coffee Street. Give me more tempo, sweet tempo. Her march into our seminal culture was even more pivotal. Human rights is often looked at in terms of atrocities and man's inhumanity to man. Equal rights is often assessed in the context of political and economic subsets, but not necessarily on the basis of culture and art form. The fight for equal rights can and did take place in the labyrinth of culture dominated by men who saw women as mere backup singers and dancers winding on a stage. In that world of denial, Dr. Calypso Rose was the tsunami. Music can be a force of social change, and Dr. MacArthur's Linda Sandy Lewis, together with her Calypso sister singing Francine, changed that cultural demographic that has since spawned many prominent female Calypsonians and soca artists. If Fire still has the ability to make even the most staid of us jump up and take a chip, our delight in Calypso Rose's genius should therefore not blind us to the ways in which her music helped to promote the woman's social agenda. The influence that the University of the West Indies has exerted on my life over the past 4 decades is a profound one. Having studied at both Mona, Jamaica and Cayville, Barbados, and having been a tutor and lecturer at UWI St. Augustine, UWI has played an all-encompassing role in shaping my persona and sensibility as a West Indian. It was study at UWI Mona that deepened my understanding of the nobility and the frailties of the human condition. And this understanding still informs my responses to the challenges that we all face on a daily basis in our private and public lives. I can still recall the magic of climbing Blue Mountain Peak, the beauty of the white sands of Negril and Dunn's River Falls, catching crayfish in Spanish Town River, and having taught in Trench Town during a summer UWI activity, I came to understand in more ways than one the hurt and despair of the underprivileged and the voiceless, and the need for compassion in our daily lives. In Jamaica, I experienced unrelenting nationalism and the spirit of democratic socialism at work, and celebrated the vision that it offered of a just, equitable, and fair society. At UWI Cayville, my lecturers, and I was privileged to have such lecturers, including Professor Ralph Carnegie, now deceased, that constitutional luminary, and Professor Telford Georges as my dean, all inculcating in us all the concept of good governance and to be alert to how the distribution of power and resources either promotes or threatens the stability of societies. Our UWI law lecturers entrenched our commitment to natural justice and the rule of law as the best defense against the chaos and anarchy that would inevitably attend the arbitrary exercise of power and the rejection of due process. At UWI Caville, Barbados, the Barbadian society taught me what it means to be truly civil and respectful, about equipoise. And these qualities have informed my responses as a prosecutor, judge, and now as president. At UWI St. Augustine, in my capacity as a senior tutor in the Department of Government and a part-time lecturer in the Department of Language and Linguistics, I came to the full realization that being a tutor or a lecturer meant not only bringing your charges up to your level, but ensuring that the environmental impetus is there for them to go beyond the teacher's competencies. It is for this reason, during my educational sojourn throughout the Caribbean region as a student, when asked about my nationality, I would often describe myself as a Trin Jam Beige. Today, because UWI then represented an almost ideal model for real integration, I can still call on Queen's Counsel, top doctors and professionals in every one of the Eastern Caribbean islands. We were a band of brothers, and still is. And I would regret if that sense of pride and self-worth that this engenders is lost because the integrating impulse of a regional university has begun to diminish. I do not know if we can counter this trend, but one possible way may be to insist that all students spend at least one semester in each of the 3 campus territories. The greatest gift that the University of the West Indies has offered us all is the ability and capacity to engage in critical thinking. And we must engage that process when we leave these portals. A critical thinker has been defined, and if I may quote, one who thinks open-mindedly within alternative systems of thought, recognizing and assessing as needs be the assumptions, implications, and practical consequences, and figuring out solutions to complex problems, end of quote. Critical thinking, then, is the skill that has enabled our West Indian scholars and thinkers to be recognized and celebrated on a world stage. It is the skill to which you have been exposed while at this university, and one which, as professionals, you will be expected to employ. We are fortunate to have an Institute of Critical Thinking and the Confucius Institute. But perhaps we need to go far further. And what is required, in my humble view, is a department of philosophy to bring a sense of meaning to our lives as scholars, as citizens, and as patriots of this great region. Socrates, the great classical Greek teacher, developed the oldest and still the most powerful teaching tactic for fostering critical thinking. In Socratic thinking, and I quote, "The focus is on asking questions, not giving answers. This method models an inquiring, probing mind. The art of questioning is important to excellence of thought," end of quote. My fellow graduates, being a critical thinker is to adopt a very demanding role. It is, however, the role that our position as graduates of this distinguished institution demands, that we assume urgently as we grapple with the special challenges facing our small islands, developing states. In this respect, I consider our youth to be a distinct asset. In fact, I have often regretted and stated openly about this dinosaur piece of legislation grounded in our Constitution that does not allow any political party or the president to appoint anyone younger than 25 years old to the Senate. Many countries in the world are lowering the voting age from 18 to 17 to 16. And we need to seriously consider that option in a world where I have found that the mock parliamentary debates and the model United Nations bring intellectual luminescence that is sometimes lacking in our parliament. I therefore believe that the wealth of information available to you, together with your incisive intellect, make you perfectly capable of arriving at appropriate solutions to current problems facing the Caribbean region. The question is, how do we facilitate a conversation that would help us to devise outcomes to which we can all commit? There is a continuous stream of opinions on governance issues expressed daily, not only in our parliament and in the print media, but also on talk radio and social media. Regrettably, in all these fora, like-minded minds tend to recycle and restate their agreed opinions. As graduates, you have a responsibility to bring more enlightened, dispassionate approach to the discourse on issues of national and regional importance. We have to replace our focus on personalities with a focus on ideas, so that the opinionated and self-serving pronouncements and forms of cyberbullying are replaced by thoughtful dialogue and open-minded conversation. Social media websites are no longer performing an envisaged function of creating a positive communication link among friends, family, and professionals. It is a veritable battleground where insults fly from the human quiver, damaging lives, destroying self-esteem, and a person's sense of self-worth. T.S. Eliot's concern of man's inhumanity to man is mirrored in his poem, The Wasteland, which speaks to our dark side. What are you doing about this, young graduates? Will you continue that mean streak so prevalent in our society because you've got the power and engrossed in that obsession that your culture called me, myself, and I? I can talk about fancy change, use nice words, even engage in tangled verbosity that the intelligent and the articulate are prone to do. But enough is enough. Transformation is required. No, it is demanded of you. And you can make a difference by sending a different message this evening, tonight, and tomorrow morning. You are about to enter the world of work. And what is your philosophy? And if you do not have one, it is not too late to craft one. Something that directs you to a sense of purposefulness. Will I be just another cog in the wheel? Am I prepared to be acknowledged as a mere statistic in the employment rate? Or add to the productivity levels in your country? Improve its competitiveness ratio and its innovation index? You must stand for something. It does not have to be grand, but it must be a positive that brings light to someone else's darkness. And if I may share two aspects of my philosophy, and you may draw for them, or you may reject them. I have a philosophy of my dispensability, and I have exercised that philosophy throughout my life. And it has given me the confidence and the independence to make decisions that in my conscience are fair and just. My constant mantra is this: try to be a better person today, not a greater person than you were yesterday. The student today is the executive of tomorrow. And what kind of executive would you be? My simple advice: culture a proper moral compass and ensure that when you are in the boardroom, and you will be one day sooner than you think, ensure that you invoke standards of accountability and integrity that are too often mouthed and not acted out in the world of commerce. We can all stop being distasteful to each other and finally be exemplars to our young people, because as adults, we continue to be ill-mannered, discourteous, and vengeful. And remember, your future employer will go into that growing wasteland, social media, to see if you are an active participant of what should not be done. And brilliance and honors degree will fail against that background and that litmus test called simple good manners. As graduates of UWI, it is expected that you will assume positions of leadership in both the private and public sectors. Those of you who choose to enter the private sector will be told that corporations have a special responsibility over and beyond the business of making money. That while they need to promote economic growth, their business practices must also reflect a valuing of ethical principles, standards, and conducts. But how does this affect you as lawyers and as engineers? As future legal professionals and as engineers, you must be aware of the role that you can play in making a positive difference to the lives of those around you. Recently, on the 8th of October, some 2 weeks ago, I was invited to and I spoke at the Eminent Speaker Series held at Cave Hill, where I discussed corporate social responsibility as it pertains to corporations, individuals, and their governance. In the article Responsibility Matters, 161 Euro Journals 23, Peter Forshaw, recognizing the increasing need for corporate social responsibility by law firms, submitted. And I quote, "The concept of CSR remains a tentative notion within the legal profession. Legal practitioners are not only required to adopt CSR practices in their firms by providing pro bono work, they must also provide cogent evidence to their clients regarding social responsibility, not only in their operations, but also in relation to litigation tactics the corporation wishes to adopt. Similarly, engineers must take responsibility for the negative consequences of both technical and administrative decisions. Suggested examples of this include placing public safety and interest above all considerations and obligations, voluntarily assuming the task of educating the public about important consequences of various technological and scientific developments, and designing and developing sustainable technologies. The message to you is simple. You do not have to micromanage, but rest assured, if you have to engage in nuts and bolts issues, pick up your wrench and either fix the machine or dismantle it. I emphasize, however, that without PSR, personal social responsibility, there can be no CSR. It means that for any good to come out of today, it has to start with you. David Burkerson has said that training allows you to respond in a predictable manner to predictable situations. Education, on the other hand, allows you to respond to unpredictable situations in a coherent manner. And as graduates of the University of the West Indies, you are now able to take the knowledge you gain and adapt it to the myriad challenges that you may encounter in both your professional and private lives. This, however, would only be possible if you give yourselves over to critical thinking and analysis. As agents of positive change, you must free yourselves from the herd mentality. You can no longer just go with the flow. My fellow graduates, CSR is a noble principle, but one that you may find is often dismissed as mere rhetoric in the pursuit of a greater financial gain. And yet, if we think of ourselves as developing countries, we must surely accept that as essential as economic growth is the development process, true and lasting development is about our people. Too often, when unethical practices are revealed, provided they are not legal, we hear the rejoinder, it's business. The smart man traditionally remains one of our cult figures. And there is almost a tacit acceptance that principles such as honesty, integrity, and respect for others may be properly sacrificed on the altar of material gain. It is certainly true that many corporations do demonstrate an understanding of what it means to be socially responsible. Support for the arts, especially the sponsorship of steel bands, is already a well-established form of CSR in TNT and in the West Indies. Other sectors have also benefited from the support of socially responsible businesses. Yet there are too many businesses and corporations that continue to fall short of the mark in this respect. Should you find yourself working in such an environment, it is incumbent upon you all to bring your critical thinking skills into play to address this feeling. As I have said before, corporate social responsibility goes beyond giving jerseys to a football team. For those of us living in small island developing states, CSR must be directed towards the acceleration of our developmental goals and to expanding the capabilities of our citizens, so that even the most disadvantaged members of our society may enjoy what the UN has described as long, creative lives in a safe environment. Tokenism, therefore, has no place in a genuine philosophy of corporate social responsibility. And we as graduates, and listen carefully to this one, must recognize that transformational economic development and growth must be accompanied by a quality of life, human development, and a philosophy that is connected to a human social compact. And we have not been successful sufficiently enough in bridging that existing gap. My fellow graduates, no good ever came without sacrifice. If you gain the freedom of thought and action associated with critical thinking and analysis, you lose the convenience of ignorance. But ignorance is bliss only for the unenlightened. If you wish to move from citizen to patriot, as I urge you to do, you have a moral responsibility to reinvest in your country, just as your country has invested in you. As a graduate, you must become a disciple and return to the age of enlightenment, not to an era of entitlement. Do not become a beggar's maid like so many adults in Trinidad and Tobago are becoming. Somebody is going to take care of my problem. And that has become our everyday solution. You have the tools to arrest this. And I have to warn you, every benefit has a burden. And if that benefit comes without a burden, then something is wrong with that benefit. Did not someone say anything worth having is not easily gained? We allow ourselves to be sucked in and we become a herd in a stampede, either to be corralled or to be taken over the precipice. You are young and you are bright, and you have to become that guiding light of intervention. There is a crisis in intellectual discussions in Trinidad and Tobago and in the West Indies. We are a society in adult distress, and we have become occasion persons. The commentators and the writers are bulldogs in a ring, bruising each other in that clash of professional egos. The disingenuous and the uncouth have a field day because of their unfettered access to fine print and a microphone. We desperately need a breed of new writers and commentators who will not engage the nation with the same old dialogue and that obsession with self. Or is it self-aggrandizement? We await a gush of fresh breeze, and you must be that fresh breeze, ladies and gentlemen. And so in closing, let me repeat what an honor it is to stand among you as a fellow graduate. Your success is proof of UWI's commitment to its stated mission to be, and I quote, a significant contributor to global intellectual growth and human development. Please accept my warmest congratulations. On what can only be deemed your outstanding achievements. And know that I leave you confident in the knowledge that the learning and skills that you have acquired over the past several years will be put to the greatest service of our country, our region, and the community of nations. Thank you very much.